So you've started to go back into the office, the daily commute is resuming, and you've noticed you're not alone. Rush hour traffic is building back up all across Tampa Bay, and maybe you're thinking, I really don't like this. Well, you're in luck, because today we're going to talk about a better way to commute in a TBARTA van pool.
Less wear and tear on their personal vehicle, right? Great savings considering the cost of their commute is being shared between coworkers, but they're also, having the joy of not driving themselves every day of their commute.
Hello and welcome to On the Go, the TBARTA podcast, where we discuss the latest in transit and transportation all across Tampa Bay. I'm your host, TBARTA Communications Director Chris Jadick, and today's topic is for anyone who dreads that long commute back and forth to work. We're going to talk about van pooling, how it works, how much money you can save, plus the extra benefits, not just for drivers, but employers too. If you're an employer struggling to find employees, adding a van pool benefit could give you an added advantage in recruiting. We'll talk about all of that with our two guests, TBARTA's Manager of Commuter Services, Ken Boden, and Account Executive Arlinda Karuli with Commute with Enterprise. Thank you both for being here today.
Thank you for having us, Chris.
Yeah, thank you, Chris. It's good to be here.
To start, let's find out a little bit about each of you and the role you play in TBARTA's van pool program, because it's a team of people who make this happen. Ken, let's start with you. As mentioned, you are the Manager of Commuter Services for TBARTA. What does that entail?
So my role here is really about building relationships with the business community. And traditionally, we've tried to build relationships with businesses that have 100 or more employees. And that really entails going after a champion at that business, somebody who wants to see reduced traffic and wants to see the reduction in air pollution. And in certain locations, we find that parking pressures are a huge problem. And so maybe they're interested in reducing traffic or in reducing parking. But really, the pandemic changed everything. Now employers are telling us that they're really struggling finding workers, quality workers. So we've really had to change what we're doing, and we're trying to build relationships with hiring managers and trying to find ways to get their employees to work. We've also looked into working with property managers and working with them to try to get employees into work locations.
And Ken, it's important to note we do this because TBARTA is the Transit Demand Manager for Commuter Assistance Programs for the Florida Department of Transportation District 7. What does that mean?
Transportation demand management is really jargon. I like to think of this in terms of like supply and demand, just a simple economics equation. So building roads and constructing infrastructure, that's really kind of a supply side dynamic. And we're really involved with trying to manage the demand for our transportation system. So that means really reducing the amount of traffic on the road. But it also can mean trying to make modifications to our road system that promotes things like bicycling, for instance. My principal responsibility is to reduce demand during the prime commuting hours, and that's really what I work on. And additionally, FDOT gives us a lot of support to help promote the van pool program. And we'll talk a little bit more about the van pool numbers, but that's what I do.
Very good. And for those who are not aware, FDOT District 7 is a 5-county region from Citrus County south and includes both Hillsborough and Pinellas counties. Now, Arlinda, on to you. What is Commute with Enterprise, and how are you partnering with TBARTA in this van pool program?
Chris, some of our listeners may know of Enterprise as Enterprise Rent-A-Car, but we also offer truck rentals, car sales, fleet management, as well as Commute, which is what I'm here to talk about today. Commute with Enterprise partners with organizations across the country to help identify a turnkey transportation solution for their employees to get to and from the work site. So we work on building relationship with local transit agencies such as TBARTA to help subsidize the van pool for their community. So in my case with TBARTA, Ken and I work together in synergizing and identifying companies that can benefit from this program. And TBARTA subsidizes $400 a month for each van pool, which is fantastic.
Thank you. Now let's turn to the van pools themselves. What is a van pool and how does that work? Such as how many people are in one? Does it make multiple stops? Things like that. Ken, can you answer that first question? Maybe some of the first questions that actually a potential van pool rider is going to ask.
So a van pool is really composed of 4 or more people that share the same commute. You can think of it as like a carpool in the sense that someone from the group drives the group every day. Well, actually, the group might decide that one person is going to drive on this day, another person is going to drive on another day. So they're really banding together to make those basic decisions. They decide when and where they're going to meet. Sometimes they make the decision that they'll make stops along the way to pick folks up. And almost all of our current van pools commute to the same location, to the same work location. Just to kind of throw this out there, the average one-way distance for our vans is right around 31 miles. Some of our longest vans actually haul 83 miles.
And Arlinda, since Commute with Enterprise provides these vehicles, can you tell me about what type of van I would be riding in, as well as how maintenance, gas, all those other costs are taken care of?
As Ken mentioned, van pools vary in size from 4 to 15 passengers, and we provide late model fully equipped vehicles to accommodate them. So they range anywhere from a 7-passenger SUV, 8-passenger vans to 10, 12, and 15-passenger transit vehicles. Now, we do have a list of preferred vendors we use for maintenance, and we instruct on our riders to use them. So this way, Enterprise is billed directly for the services needed. And we actually have an operations team that instructs participants on when it's due for maintenance. Now, in the van pool, we also include not just full coverage insurance, but there's an optional fuel card and toll pass. And then best of all, there's a 24-hour roadside assistance. So one thing, Chris, cost is going to vary based on this distance, right? So once we kind of add up fuel and toll, obviously they're going to be different for every van pool. And then we subtract the $400 subsidy that is offered from TBARTA. Then we kind of separate the cost based on each rider, and we let each person know what that they're going to be responsible for.
So just to review that, it's very similar to if I rented a car in terms of the cost. I'm going to have to pay for the rental. I'm going to have to pay for the gasoline, but the maintenance is handled by Enterprise, those types of things. Obviously, I don't have to take care of, even though it's a van that I may be using, weeks, months on end.
Correct.
Now, Arlinda, as you meet with potential clients and customers, your job is to help them best understand the advantages of van pools. How do you describe the program, its benefits, and why they may want to join?
So as for employees, there are a number of benefits, Chris, especially when we're looking at what this translates into for them. Less wear and tear on their personal vehicle, right? Great savings considering the cost of their commute is being shared between coworkers. But they're also, having the joy of not driving themselves every day of their commute. So now they get some time back in their day to rest, recharge, have a more productive day. And it's a month-to-month program. So it's not a long-term financial commitment. As I mentioned earlier, insurance is included. So we have $1 million in liability, and then there's also a 0 deductible comprehensive and collision. This is really big because it means less exposure to their personal vehicle while they're driving to and from the work site. And then again, there's also 200 miles that we use for personal use. What we've seen in the past is households that have 2 vehicles have been able to eliminate that second one that they were using just to get to and from the work site. So again, highlighting the savings truly is a big part of this.
So Arlinda, we're really working with 2 different groups of people here. There is the potential van pool rider who you just talked about, but employers also have an interest in this with their own advantages.
Chris, from what we're seeing, many companies are struggling with recruitment and retention, a great point that Ken brought up. As a company, you need to maintain a competitive edge and offer a transportation solution, and that could really be it. We can also assist with addressing parking concerns and lower infrastructure costs, and then also provide measurable data to show sustainable efforts. A lot of companies are looking beyond the typical approach, which is within the 4 walls of the business, and we can provide the data to show how much we're lowering that CO2 emission by through the van pool program.
Can you provide an example of a local employer who adopted a van pool program, their situation, and why the program works for them?
Absolutely. So one of our largest accounts right now is James A. Haley, the VA hospital. And they currently have 70 vanpools on the road, which is fantastic. We've helped them with a couple things. A, recruitment and retention. The typical lifespan of a vanpool pre-COVID was averaging over 6 years. That means that we've seen vanpools out there with 13 plus years. And then also, that not only are their employees saving a ton of money, being a federal site, they receive additional subsidies, right? So on top of the $400 that TBARTA offers, they get a transit benefit fund, which is $270 per person. So essentially for federal employees, there's no out of pocket, right? And now when we look at parking for them, which I'm not sure if anyone has been out there, it is a struggle. What we've been able to do is free up 248 parking spots because of all the participants we have in the program, which is phenomenal. We were actually speaking to our contact from there not too long ago, and she mentioned it took 20 minutes to get out of the garage. So talk about adding an extra 248 vehicles coming in and out of that garage is very significant. And best of all, again, as we start being green as a city and recognizing the initiatives and sustainability efforts out there, we were able to measure 3.6 million over the last few years reduced in CO2 emission just by them utilizing the vanpool program. So it's really, I think, been phenomenal for them. And we're seeing continuous requests for them and helping their transportation solution for their folks.
Ken, as we mentioned, TBARTA also works with employers and at no cost because this is a public service. How are we helping employers set up a vanpool program? What do we do? What do we bring to the table when we meet with employers?
Yeah, I mean, it really starts with first getting to know the employer and figuring out if vanpool is something that solves a problem for them. Many times, like an HR manager or the CEO, they don't really have a lot of knowledge about where their employees are coming from. And so what we do is really try to initiate a commuter survey with their employees, an employee commute survey. And it really starts with asking questions about, are their employees interested in joining a vanpool? What kind of barriers do they face to joining a vanpool? We even offer to produce a map for them to show visually where everybody is coming from. And I think both of these tools, that commute survey and the map, really helps the employer and TBARTA figure out exactly how to work with their employees.
And let's double back to the vanpool rider now, because there's a lot of money saving reasons people may want to join. We talked about the convenience of not having to drive, letting somebody else do that. But the money saving benefit, not having your own car, is also important too. How do you articulate that when you're talking to a potential vanpool rider?
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of ways that an employee can save money. First of all, they're not really putting any wear and tear on their vehicle. It's great that USDOT, the US Department of Transportation, just recently came out with a reanalysis of the actual cost of ownership and utilization of a vehicle. And we're talking about $10,000 a year for an employee who could be using that money for something else. So families in particular that are thinking about downsizing a vehicle in their family or potentially are looking at purchasing a new vehicle, I think vanpool really gives them that option to not have to make that purchase, not have to make that costly purchase.
And let's not overlook there are advantages for all of us when people use vanpools. The more people vanpool, carpool, use transit, et cetera, the less traffic congestion. So we all win, right?
Well, our vanpool program in 2020 saved over 4 million pounds of CO2 from escaping into the atmosphere. And I always like to put this in context. How do you visualize 4 million pounds of CO2? Well, that's the same amount of CO2 that's contained in the volume of air that would fit in 1,073 Raymond James stadiums. So that's a lot of savings.
TBARTA has an outreach campaign going on right now. I know you've heard of it. You've heard our messages on the radio and television. I want to play one of those spots for you now. This is Sarah Jacobs with iHeartRadio. In 60 seconds, she does a great job of summing up what our vanpool program is and why you might want to join it. Here it is.
Admit it, you don't want to drive to work anymore, but you have to get there somehow. So why not switch it up and ride in a vanpool from Commute Tampa Bay? Leave your car at home and let somebody else do the driving while you relax and save a bunch of money with a stress-free commute. Visit CommuteTampaBay.com. They'll help you form a vanpool with friends, or you can join one that's already on the road. Plus, when you do your part to reduce traffic congestion, you earn points for amazing rewards like restaurant coupons, retailer discounts, or tickets to shows and attractions. And don't worry about ever being stranded at work if you need to go home early. When you join a vanpool, you're automatically registered for their emergency ride home program with up to 6 free rides home every year. So you save money, you win rewards, you help save the environment. We all win when you sign up with Commute Tampa Bay. Create your free account today at CommuteTampaBay.com. That's CommuteTampaBay.com. A public service from TBARTA, the Tampa Bay Area Regional Transit Authority.
Ken, I know you and I agree. Sarah is a great spokesperson for the program. She also touched on a couple of things we have not gotten into yet, including the emergency ride home program. As we know, vanpooling is not for everyone. It works best for people who have a set schedule, such as 8 to 5, Monday through Friday. But even then, there's a concern a vanpooler loses the independence of coming and going whenever they like or need to without that personal vehicle. But emergency ride home is there to alleviate some of those concerns. Ken, how does that work?
The emergency ride home program is automatic for people that are already in the vanpools program. If they, for instance, have to work late, they have an unplanned schedule change, or let's say they get ill and have to leave, or one of the vanpool organizer has to leave, the emergency ride home program kicks in. It'll cover $100 of costs, whether they use Uber, Lyft, or a taxi. It's a reimbursement system. And they can, like Sarah said, they can use it up to 6 times a year. There is a form on CommuteTampaBay.com, and they can download that, or they can contact me. I will send them a form. They save the receipt and then submit the package to us, and we'll make sure and reimburse them.
And important to note that emergency ride home is not just for people who use the TBARTA vanpool, but it's available for anybody who uses alternative transportation, such as a bus rider or even students. Is that correct?
Absolutely. It's available to anybody who doesn't drive alone to work. So that includes people who are bicycling, walking, using transit, or carpooling, in addition to vanpool.
It's a great program and it's free. And I would encourage anybody who is a transit user or uses alternative transportation to sign up for that benefit, because you never know when you may want to use it. And that leads us to the Commute Tampa Bay program with reward benefits that Sarah mentioned, that vanpoolers, carpoolers, transit and bike riders can all cash in on at no cost whenever they use alternative transportation. Ken, tell us more about that.
Yeah, so we have thousands of vendors signed up, and folks can, like Sarah said, earn points when they record their trips on Commute Tampa Bay. Each trip is worth a certain value. What happens is that once they've accumulated a certain amount of points, they can convert them into discount coupons. They can even utilize their points to join drawings for gift cards. We offer $100 in gift cards per month, so that's really 4 $25 gift cards. So it is a benefit to actually record your trips if you're taking alternative forms of transportation.
Once again, that's a great free program. And even if you're not a vanpooler, we encourage you to sign up for that. And so what is the best way for anyone who wants to sign up for those Commute Tampa Bay programs to get involved?
Well, the first place is register an account on CommuteTampaBay.com. That's the best way to get started.
Very good. Now, as we mentioned earlier, vanpool has benefits for both riders and employers. Arlinda talked about employers earlier, and we also have some messages out there right now focused on that. This is Jack Harris, also part of our radio campaign, speaking to hiring managers and organizational leadership.
Howdy, Jack Harris here, and this is a message for all of you employers out there. I know many of you are struggling to find good employees. If so, consider adding vanpool services from Commute Tampa Bay. Employees who share the ride save hundreds of dollars each month. By adding vanpool to your benefits package, you attract and retain more employees. What's more, Commute Tampa Bay will set the program up for you at no cost. This is a free public service provided by the Tampa Bay Area Regional Transit Authority to help reduce traffic congestion. So we all win. Find out more at CommuteTampaBay.com. They'll be happy to talk with you and fill you in on all the benefits you and your employees will get with a Commute Tampa Bay vanpool program. That's CommuteTampaBay.com. And once again, check them out at CommuteTampaBay.com.
Arlinda, Jack touched on a lot of the themes we've discussed here today. And one of the most important points, I think, is this. There's no cost to employers for any of the vanpool services we've talked about today. Vanpool riders do have to share the cost of the vehicle, pay for gas and tolls. But as we've seen, by sharing the ride, cashing in on that federal subsidy, they end up saving a lot of money. And if you and Ken can help an employer set up a vanpool program, that seems to be the easiest way to get people started.
That's correct, Chris. We do offer free consultation to employers, and we strongly encourage them to reach out to us. We do have the tools to identify opportunities. And one of the great ways to do it is through a cluster and route analysis that we offer. This is free to the work site. So typically what we do is collect some addresses with employee identifiers and then focus on the long distance commuters. So we can see groups of 10 to 15 people that live near one another and work on introducing the program to them. So the best way and the reason why we work through the work site is because obviously they have the access to do so. But I do want to highlight that there is no risk to employers. Again, at this time, employees are traveling to and from the work site. They're not clocked in at any point. So it's not a workers' comp situation. So it's very similar to if you're offering other transit options or bus passes, letting them know that a route is available. If there is an incident along the way, it is happening outside the work hours.
Great. So Arlinda, if an employer wants to reach out and learn more, what's the best way for them to contact you?
Chris, I strongly suggest that listeners go to commutewithenterprise.com. We do have some great tools on the site. One for the companies that helps them identify exactly based on their number of employees, how many parking spots they can reduce, how much money employees can save, as well as that carbon emission reduction. And then there's also another calculator as a participant where you're able to put in the miles that you drive to the work site, and it will put a dollar amount of what you could be saving utilizing the vanpool program. Another way also, I do strongly suggest that you reach out to me directly. Again, we talked about mapping and identifying opportunities. I would love to hear out from employers nearby. They could reach out to me at arlinda.karuli@ehi.com. That is ARLINDA.KARULI@EHI.com.
And Ken, if an employer or a potential rider wants to learn more about anything we talked about here today, what's the best way to do any of that?
So for a potential rider, I would definitely recommend CommuteTampaBay.com or actually just going CommuteWithEnterprise.com. Both of those work great. An employer, the best way for them to get set up with this is to send me an email or give me a call. That's commuterservices@tbarta.com. Or they can call me directly at 813-639-7728.
All right, Ken, Arlinda, thanks for taking a few moments to detail all those vanpool programs. As mentioned, this program is not for everyone, but for many people who are heading back into the office, especially as we see traffic congestion start to build back up, it's a good time to start thinking about those alternatives, and the time could be right to consider the benefits of a TBARTA vanpool. So thank you for joining us. I'm Chris Jadick, and you've been listening to On the Go, the podcast from the Tampa Bay Area Regional Transit Authority.